They didn't just silence a target. They shattered it. A key underground command structure was blown apart as this war crossed into a far more dangerous phase. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate message, cold, calculated, and sent in the middle of an escalation that no longer bothers to hide its brutality. Drones, hidden bunkers, secret command nodes, foreign powers pulling strings quietly, and while some still talk about negotiations, strikes keep landing on Russian territory. Now the response being prepared promises to be even more destructive. What immediately stands out to me is how dramatically the operational landscape has shifted. We're no longer talking about improvised drones or symbolic attacks. According to Russian military sources, these systems now have ranges of up to 100 kilometers. That's not backyard engineering. That's advanced military technology. And that single fact alone changes the entire map of the conflict. This means the war is no longer confined to the front lines. Depth no longer guarantees safety. Border regions, logistical hubs, even cities far from active combat zones suddenly become potential targets. From a strategic standpoint, this forces Russia into a permanent state of high alert. Every radar system, every air defense battery, every operator is now working under relentless pressure. Reaction times shrink. Margins for error disappear. General Sergei Lipoboy, a decorated Russian officer, makes a claim that goes beyond pure military assessment. From his perspective, these capabilities didn't originate in Kyiv. They were delivered, supplied, enabled by Western sponsors, NATO countries, foreign structures, external interests that are not Ukrainian. Whether one agrees or not, the implication is clear. Russia no longer sees itself fighting Ukraine alone. It sees a bloc. Why does that matter? Because once a conflict is framed that way, escalation logic changes. Deterrence changes. Red lines move. And suddenly, every intercepted drone is no longer just a tactical success. It becomes a political signal. Militarily, Russia claims most of these drones were destroyed mid-air. Strategically, that's important. Psychologically, it's even more so. These attacks aren't just about physical damage. They are designed to generate fear, to expose vulnerability, to create the perception of chaos. Civilian areas become part of the battlefield not because of necessity, but because fear itself is a weapon. But here's the uncomfortable part. When attacks on the battlefield fail to deliver results, warfare tends to drift toward terror. That drift often signals frustration or desperation. Lipoboy argues that the operational situation has fundamentally changed. There is no safe rear anymore. Every region is potentially exposed. That forces massive resource allocation, tighter coordination, and constant readiness. Russia, in his view, is adapting to a new kind of war, remote, technological, persistent. And the message being sent to Moscow is clearly provocative. Still, the response so far has been restraint paired with resilience. Infrastructure remains intact. A larger catastrophe was avoided. Yet, a wounded civilian in Bataysk is a reminder that interception doesn't erase human cost. Every piece of shrapnel carries a real story. Every drone shot down could have ended very differently. This is not abstract strategy. This is lived reality. Now layer politics on top of that, and the tension multiplies. While public statements continue to mention negotiations and possible diplomatic exits, the attacks haven't stopped. Lipoboy interprets this contradiction bluntly. Kyiv speaks of peace while acting in direct opposition to it. From his perspective, this isn't hypocrisy by accident. It's strategy. He claims that for the current Ukrainian leadership, peace itself is a threat. An agreement would destabilize the regime. It would expose internal fractures. So prolonging the war becomes a survival mechanism. War until the last Ukrainian, not as rhetoric, but as cold political calculus. Each strike on Russian territory, in this interpretation, serves a purpose beyond military impact. It sabotages diplomatic momentum. It provokes retaliation. It hardens positions. It makes dialogue impossible. And civilians on both sides pay the price. This is where the war turns even uglier. Lipoboy openly accuses Ukraine of targeting civilian objects. That accusation, regardless of how it's contested internationally, matters because it hardens Russia's posture. Once a conflict is framed as terror rather than combat, restraint becomes politically untenable. The strategic logic behind the drone campaign, as he sees it, is to keep Western support flowing, to demonstrate constant military activity, to justify continued funding, even if the internal cost is devastation. But that strategy also reveals something else: fragility. If peace threatens power in Kyiv, then the core problem isn't external pressure. It's internal political structure. At this point in the analysis, there's a deeper question about how long external sponsors are willing to underwrite that logic, and that's something I've explored in more detail elsewhere, including in Quick News, because unpacking that fully would pull us too far off course here. Still, one question naturally emerges. If peace is dangerous for one side's leadership, what incentive remains to de-escalate at all? I'm curious how you see that tension playing out. Share your thoughts below, because this isn't a theoretical debate anymore. Now we get to what may be the most dangerous development yet: command and control. Lipoboy points directly to Kyiv as the coordination hub for these drone operations. A central command node. A brain, not just hands. According to him, this isn't a standalone Ukrainian structure. It's tightly supervised by Western advisors, coordinators, and overseers. A chain of command that extends beyond Ukraine itself. He goes further. Since 2014, he claims, Ukraine has operated under external control. Major military decisions in this framing are not fully sovereign. They are supervised, calculated, approved elsewhere. If that's even partially true, the implications are enormous. Such a command center wouldn't be visible. It wouldn't be symbolic. It would likely be underground, fortified, hardened, designed to survive strikes. A bunker meant to endure. And yet, Lipoboy insists, not invulnerable. He points to Russia's arsenal of high-precision weapons, bunker-busting munitions, systems designed to penetrate concrete and steel. Technology, he says, is not the limitation. Choices. And that's the warning being issued now. No decision-making center is beyond reach. No bunker is guaranteed safety. If escalation continues, the response may be proportional, but it will be decisive. That shifts the strategic equation again. The planners themselves are no longer insulated. Every order carries personal risk. The technological war hits a ceiling where command nodes become legitimate targets. This is the moment where the conflict takes another step up the ladder. It's no longer just about intercepting drones in the sky. It's about neutralizing the mines directing them. Hitting the head, not just the wings. And that's where escalation becomes exponentially more dangerous. Striking command centers widens the conflict, deepens consequences, and narrows paths back to de-escalation. Before wrapping up, I want to ask a harder question. If both sides now view command infrastructure as fair game, how close are we to a point where control itself becomes the primary battlefield? Let me know how you read that risk. Here's where everything stands. The facts are clear. Drone attacks on Russian territory have intensified, using advanced technology with extended range. Russia has intercepted most of them, but not without human cost. Politically, negotiations are being discussed while military actions actively undermine them. Strategically, the war is shifting from frontline engagements to deep strikes and command targeting. In this phase, there are no clean winners. Civilians lose first. Political credibility erodes. The biggest short-term winner may be escalation itself, because it feeds those who rely on the conflict to survive politically. Historically, wars enter their most dangerous stage when technology outpaces diplomacy and leadership becomes trapped by its own narratives. That's where we are now. And the most unsettling thought is this. Once command centers become targets, the war stops being about territory and starts being about control. That's where conflicts tend to slip out of anyone's hands. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're tracking the evolution of this story day by day. Make sure to activate notifications and don't miss our next report. And remember, you can now become a channel member. If you believe in this project and want to see it grow, your support makes all the difference. If you'd like to support our channel financially, which we greatly appreciate, You can do so through Patreon and PayPal. The link is in the video description.